people recognize and see that this is official and that it's the realest thing they would ever see. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Gotcha. So what old are you gonna play to?
What oldie I'm gonna play to? I ain't gonna lie. I don't really listen to a lot of oldies and stuff because I'm more into music that keep me on my toes. You know, the only thing I listen to is romantic music, but that's a different discussion.
Your song would have been I Ain't No Joke. I Ain't No Joke.
They got a song for you. You got your DJs right there. All right, Sano. So what's broken your heart about graffiti, man?
All right, so think about this. There's so many heartbreaks, goodness. But one notable, because this is going to be a little off the regular track, I guess. So maybe around 2006 and 2007, I was involved with a spray paint company called Plutonium G, and I was in it from the inception of this company. So, long story short, basically I helped produce and manufacture, design, research and develop, and set up the shipping department for, let's say, I helped ship 150,000 cans of paint to 200 locations across America. And I had to walk away from this company due to failed contract, all of this stuff. But because of graffiti, because of graffiti, my relationship to it, and people that I've mentored and taught, you know, that were also like partners in the company. Like, I'm just saying, like, I was able to, you know, take this journey, you know, and this wild ride, and, you know, and then have to walk away from it, you know, it was pretty heartbreaking. So yeah, that's just, you know.
That is heartbreaking. Okay, Mr. Ace, where's graffiti hurt you, but hurt you, dog?
That's a hard question. I don't know if I can really answer that.
No? It's a personal question?
I mean, I don't think, either I'm too young to feel like I've had that I don't think I've had that experience to really, I don't think I've had an experience where I can say it's a heartbreak. I mean, I do feel other people's like heartbreaks.
Well, what's been a good example? Because a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser man learns from the mistakes of others.
I don't know if it's graffiti or if it's, I don't know what I'm thinking would be considered a heartbreak. The monetizing of it, like how some people take it and just rip off other people.
Yeah, you were talking about that a little bit earlier with the font thing, right? Like,
yeah, like I've seen some people's stuff, like say for example, like say like Gap, right? A company like Gap will just take somebody's stuff and it'll be full blast in the storefront, and that artist has no idea that their stuff got used. You know? So that's me, but I don't know if that's graffiti breaking the heart. Only thing I can think that probably measures up to that is another graffiti artist going over your stuff.
Capping.
Yeah, getting capped, like that's kind of a heartbreak. But you know, like.
Let's give you did letters like that.
Nah, I've had experiences where just like you either go small or you go big. You go small, you're getting capped. That, you know, I guess that could be a heartbreak. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool, Matt. Your sister found your drawing.
I guess similar to Ace, I don't have too many negative things from graffiti in general. I'd say the only thing that I thought of immediately when you asked the question was a personal experience I had. I remember I had a very down moment. It was just in like high school, and you know, black books going around was a big thing. And I remember my black book got around to this one dude, and I heard from like another friend that he was telling his friend, like, "Hey man, let me diss this shit. This shit sucks." And so like, oh, I should watch my language, sorry. But that, like, those kind of things like really hurt. You know, just hearing that, like, you know, this dude thought I was a toy, and just my stuff sucked, and he thought so low that he wanted to just stamp it, and it was like my book that I gave to my friend. And so like hearing stuff like that kind of got me down. But you know, in hindsight, it just, I guess, made me so insecure. It just made me get at it and get at it and get at it, and pushed me. So I look at it like that negative turned into a positive, so I can't look at it that way. But in other senses, maybe the only other part I could think of negativity is the few times I got caught, but maybe I was supposed to get caught. And then other than that, just getting, you know, capped over. Other than that, and then kind of to elaborate what Craig was talking about, I just thought there was a period where it sucked when there was just a lot of beefing going on. It wasn't even about style or just skills anymore or battling. It was just about let's fight, and that just really sucked. It just made the art just really suffer and die. But at the same time, it's still here and it's growing and it's true and tested. So I think it speaks for itself. And
Gotcha.
And I'll add to this and end it on this. A lot of those beefs have stopped because of the art, and we're going in a positive way. So I think that has a lot to say.
Awesome. Elvon, I mean Ink.
Okay, so like going and keeping things going and not letting anybody stop you. I guess heartbreaks is trauma. So I've had, like, throughout the years of my life, I've had like trauma that has kind of built character or, you know, made me want to keep going. And I guess those would be heartbreaks. Yeah, you know, it's trauma. Okay. So I have a few little things that seem like they all connected, which was the first time I got busted doing graffiti. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me see if I can tell the story quickly. So I'm 4 years old, right? So I'm 4 years old, and I go to a school called the Hawthorne Christian School. So I got my suit on, my tie, my little hat, you know, afro sticking out the side, and kindergarten. I'm in kindergarten. And for some odd reason, I wasn't in class. I was ditching. Oh. So I was wandering around the school, and, you know, just being a 4-year-old little kid in kindergarten, you know, you never really been outside.
Wait. How are you 4 years old and ditching?
When I was 4 years old, and I was ditching class, not in class, and I was wandering around the school, bro. And, you know, and I was just amazed because, you know, you just imagine when you're in kindergarten and you're out of class, you see hundreds of other little kids around. And I'm walking around the school like, whoa, look, it's nobody. I'm going down the hallway, like, I'm looking around corners, like, whoa. I go to the school, I go to the swings, and swing is just doing, I go to that little bar, the bar that's like this, where the girls used to do the backflips on, and I'm looking at that, and those girls are on it, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm walking, and I'm wandering around the school just like amazed, like, yeah, I'm out of class, you know? And I turn the corner, and I look, and I see the most amazing things that I had ever seen in my long life. It was another little boy drawing on the wall. And he was writing on the wall, with, you know. And I looked, and I walked over to him, and I'm just standing looking at him like, what is that? It's like on the wall. And I go, you know, like you said, I wanted to touch it, I wanted to do it. And I said, can I do it? And he goes, yeah. Sorry. And so he turns around and he hands me that, you remember those My Pal pencils? The big blue ones?
Yeah.
Pencil break.
I swear to you, that pencil was like this big, okay? So he handed me the pencil, and you know, and I was just like, yeah, I'm about to write on the wall. And I turn to the wall, and I walk up to the wall, and I do the same thing that I do today. Any of my paint buddies will know, I'll walk up to the spot and go, create, what should I do? Create, no, I do that. What should I do? I'll call Create and ask him, you know, I'm about to go do a painting, what should I do? And he tells me, you know, you should do this. I go, okay. I ask the kid, I'm standing at the wall like, what should I do? He said, draw a piece of dookie. And so I was like, all right. So this is the coldest part about it. I took that pencil and I didn't just draw a little piece of dookie like this. I walked down the wall. And then came all the way back. and connected it. So I know my piece of dookie had to be as big as that bench right there. I'm talking about long. You know what I'm saying? So I drew this piece of dookie, and I turned around, and that little boy was rolling. I'm talking about he was cracking up, like he was standing there with his hands around his ribs rolling. And I'm standing there looking at him like, yeah, man, I did my thing. And then he goes, draw a piece of corn, draw some corn in it. So I started drawing some corn in it. And I drew my little pieces of corn, and I turned around, and he's over there, I'm talking about cracking up. Draw some peanuts in it. So I started drawing some peanuts in it. You know what I'm saying? And I turned around, and this little boy, I'm talking about this little boy is laughing so hard, and we're both standing there cracking up. I'm talking about, like, it was like the most amazing, and like the way that made me feel was like to draw something like big on the wall, like some big shit. You know what I'm saying? And I went big. You know what I'm saying? And then
Or go home.
yeah, go big or go home. And then I turned around, and there was like this nun standing there. Like, and her little nun thing was like on fire, going like this. What are you doing? And they took us to the office, and you remember that ruler? It only had that one side edge on it, and it was real heavy. And I got swats all across my hands. You know what I'm saying? So I remember that, like. You know what I'm saying? How that made me feel, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And just getting swats on my butt, swats on my hands, went home, got my butt whooped. Fast forward to high school. I got kicked out of Cleveland High School for drawing in class too much.
Oh, wow.
For drawing in class too much. I got kicked out of Washington High School for having airbrush on my clothes. I got kicked out of another school, and the only school I didn't get kicked out of was Locke. And I got kicked out of West Side Alternative for having markers and spray paint in my backpack. You know what I'm saying? So I got kicked out of 4 high schools, all not for fighting, ditching, disrespecting, even though I was ditching in kindergarten. But I didn't get kicked out of school for none of those things other than all art-related things. Wow. For having markers and spray paint in my backpack, and now I got 2 pieces in the Getty, one with markers and one with spray paint. That's right. You dig what I'm saying? So all of those things were kind of like really heartbreaking to know that I can, get kicked out of school for drawing in class too much and being in trouble behind that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all those things were traumatic. And
Little did they know, right? Little did they know.
Little
did they know that little cupboard at your house was.
Yup.
When I wanted to facilitate this, I wanted this little story time because we're going to be in the garden, and it reminded me of my grandma's house, being outside talking to her, and I wanted to kind of open up, and we know each other now, right? We know each other. But one of the main objectives of this talk, when I was given the assignment to come see your exhibition and then to get to talk with y'all and visit with the audience, was to talk about a couple of key issues. So it kind of follows up right along with what you're talking about in relationship to like this discipline that you face for your art, right? You're getting kicked out of schools and all this. And some of the things that you brought up as heartaches in relationship to like who gets acknowledgement for the art that you create and the kind of legwork that you're putting into work, your labor, right? Your art as labor, and then how this gets summed up and then can kind of get sideswiped or taken or culturally appropriated or corporately appropriated by other folks that then take the chips in to cash them in, right? So these kinds of things are kind of the bigger picture things that we wanted to talk about. My main header that I was given is that y'all wanted to talk about a relationship between like what graffiti art is and then how that has transitioned to like what now is culturally appropriate with what's called street art. And how we all felt about that and where we all think our place is within that rubric or that shifting. And this is a cultural department, DCA site, this center. And one of the first times I got to meet you create and work with you was through the DCA had hired me as a curator to organize an exhibition in downtown LA that was of graffiti art history. Do you remember those? Like now this building is gone. It's like
Downtown LA?
Yeah, it was like a history show. Well, anyway, it was a show. I don't remember. Well, anyway, you were in it. It was one of the many things that are in your hat, of course.
KGB gallery?
No, this place doesn't even, they tore it down. It's like, yeah, it's gone. But one of the things that also attracted me to you is that right when I got into school, I worked off of Slauson and Western across from the Slauson Supermall. So I had to drive down Slauson every day to go to work. And seeing y'all's railroad yard, right, the Slauson yard, and seeing how, okay, so one of the things, if y'all don't know, in relationship to graffiti, there's these places called yards. I don't even know if today there might be cutty yards, but they're not the same yards I remember as a young person at all. But that was essentially like the Belmont yard that was in downtown. That was the battlefield one where artists went and battled each other, and there's very historical battles that have come out of that yard. But it was essentially an art school, right? Because that's where all the artists, these yards, where all these young artists from all of our different communities were able to come together and learn from one another. Yep. It was like a guild, like if you have like a carpenters guild or a pipe fitters union, or all those men and people that work for I grew up in the harbor, so my family all worked at longshoremen, so they all got to go to their dispatch hall, right? But you go to your union hall, your guild, your yard, and that's where you would learn. You would see like, oh man, and I've listened to Create. If you haven't had a chance to listen to him in teacher mode, I definitely advise y'all to be in one of his classes and listen to how he breaks down the information of graffiti into teachings. And all that information was like accumulated, right? Like you learn how these tips work, and you learn how this spray paint works, and you learn how this bit from things. So it's a guild. That's where y'all went. And there was a certain apprenticeship, right? There's like, people say, like when I was back in Detroit, this guy gave me this set of saying, and I hadn't heard it in a long time, but he was like, yeah, it was like a puppy on the porch, and all the big dogs were in the street, right? So like if you're a young person in one of these crews, you have to build up your skill set to be able to be down with the whole production, etc., right? Like at the beginning, you're painting background. Like you're filling in some orange in the sky. That's your job. So there was a certain apprenticeship and a kind of guild mentality towards graffiti culture, towards the craft that y'all were building up. And there was a certain leadership. So when Ink is saying, like, yo, I would ask Create about certain things to put in my piece, there was because there was a kind of leadership in this guild mentality, right? Yeah. Are you following me, or am I talking out my ass? Saying nothing in my face right now. Am I So that stuff is built up to where I really feel what you're saying, Create, about the heartache, the heartbreak, is that you've gone through this kind of process. And there's stories where you tell me about, I've been privy to hear about your big homies and what they taught you, and what other crafts people from other, like the other crews that you're in, like some of the East Coast crews that you're in, and things that they taught you in relationship to language and stuff. So I just want you all to talk about that. Like, how have you seen yourself in regards to being in a certain type of lineage as a graffiti artist? Because we need to speak to that and claim that authority. Because y'all are like high-ranking members in this guild. So I need to hear from you how you would communicate that to an audience. Like, how do you see yourself in relationship to like your craft, and how you've been building up mentorship and leadership, or where you are in this process?
That's a good question for me, because I remember when I was young, coming out of elementary school, I was already doing the art form in elementary, but when I went into the 7th grade, I immediately got hooked up with the right people, so I fell into like the right hands of the right folks that guided me on the right path, and they showed me what a book was, a sketchbook was. They showed me the proper marker to use, and they gave me the knowledge and the wisdom on how to make your book look. Because they didn't just talk it, they showed it. They led by example. So I had to pick up that kind of habits and be able to display it to other people that was coming towards me. Now I also had some bad experiences when I was coming up, where I looked up to certain people, and I would ask them, hey, can you teach me how to draw or paint like you? And they looked at me and said no, and got back to painting. And I was like disappointed, like my feelings got hurt just a little bit, And I talked to another well-known writer out here in LA, and he was at the top at that time in terms of his art skills. And I asked him, I said, hey man, you real good, can you teach me how to do like you? He said, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't have time to teach you. He said, the only thing I can tell you is practice make perfect. Keep doing what you love to do and keep doing it until you feel you didn't reach to the top. He said, but you always got room for improvement. So I said, damn. So what ended up happening with me, you know what I'm saying, throughout my journey, I had direct mentors and indirect mentors, because I always would go around taking photos of quality artwork on the wall that was done by, you know, the best. I've also learned that if you be around the best, you become the best. So you got to surround yourself in that kind of group. And so that's what Rockin' the Nation is. We're a group of elite artists to where everybody got a specialty. Everybody have a certain type of signature thumbprint to how they do their artwork. And so by us surrounding ourselves, like Sano right here on the left of me, I'm not going to speak for his thing, but I'm just sharing right now. When I'm around him, he's a good thinker. He analyzes things in certain ways, and his outlook on things is like might be different from mine. You know, when I work with Ace is a good thinker. You know, both of these two guys, when it's time to connect, they don't waste no time, they don't play. They get right into it, and they ready to be productive. Mask is a real serious guy. When I'm around him, he's like, yo, hey, let's get there on time, let's do this, let's not play, let's get it done, let's bust. And I like that. And then let me say for Ink, you know, Ink is always about quality and not half-stepping and bringing out the best and taking it to over the top. So when you surrounded by these kind of artists right here, you don't have no option but to do your best. You know
That's what I'm saying. There's a sense of professionalism in your craft.
Real talk. There was time where, you know, if they felt if I was like lacking, maybe I didn't feel like it, but they felt like it, and they'll pull my card. They say, man, Create, that's what you doing, man. You need to step that up. You know, you know, sometimes people can be sensitive towards things with their art, but then sometimes, you know, you might want to just take it under consideration and stop being so sensitive about things, you know. And so I say all that to say, that's what we all about, you know, each one teach one.
Can y'all speak to that, what Create just said, and a little bit the platform of a question that I gave about a guild, a kind of master apprentice, mastership of a craft? Because I think we really need to acknowledge that.
Okay. Let's say, guild, mastership of a craft. All right, so, you know, a little bit of my history again. I'm trying to figure out how to frame this, and this is what I've been kind of definitely listening to the question, but I'm trying to figure out how to frame it in the sense that, again, I'm from Cleveland, so I started painting officially '83. After a trip to Japan, actually. So after the Ranger piece, I saw a piece in Japan. I got family in Japan on my mom's side. I saw a piece that said, hip hop don't stop. I was like, okay, so this was my second love moment, like my all-in moment. From that point, I would say 83 to 86, trial years, you know, my toy years. I'm like trying to figure it out. There are no mentors. It's just the streets. There's gang graffiti, there's hip hop graffiti, there's you see this thing happening, and of course, you know, the older folks don't necessarily always want to teach the younger folks at this time. This is mid-'80s stuff. Some movies come out, some books come out, Style Wars to Subway Art. So, you know, like these books, yeah, they pop up in the library. We were on them. You know, I think this is how a lot of the information was early kind of spread out. Early IGT, International Graffiti Times magazines. I started seeing that kind of stuff in Cleveland. There was a bookstore. Anyway, so basically for me, like I built one of the main crews in Cleveland, and I'm gonna say it's like the main black crew in Cleveland. Right? It's Cleveland Scribe Tribe, CST. By 1999, like videos are coming out, VHS. There's rap videos. There's what do you call it? Like there's like Videograph. There's also stuff like, but there's all these magazines. So like I'm in Cleveland, I'm getting these magazines from from LA, like Big Time magazine or whatnot, which I think through Big Time and some of the other magazines, some of the other videos is where I start seeing Create on. By '99, I became an advisor for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's hip hop programs in their education department. How do you say it? The education department was putting together a hip hop conference. So it was my kind of thing to help put together this whole hip hop conference. There were 13 of us, but I'd say it came down to me and this other guy, B-Boy Dre Live, because we were the ones that would go out of town and do all these different hip hop events. So I skipped over a lot, but like let's say early 90s, I was also putting together a hip hop magazine. I was the designer behind a hip hop magazine in Cleveland called It's a Rap, so we would go to all these different hip hop events.
So not only both of you are both saying that besides being practitioners, you're also facilitators for other folks to join in.
Right. So what I'm saying specifically is with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they said, we structured it in the 4 elements, and then we had to offer people, and then of course you got limited slots, there's a budget, but they said, my strategy was to do East Coast and West Coast, bring in artists from East Coast and West Coast, and maybe overseas, and that's where no.2 came in. But this was my personal list of, like, I think these are the dopest artists on the East and West Coast.
Gotcha.
Including.
So you got to be a tastemaker.
Right. So that would facilitate our meeting, our initial meeting. So I just wanted to kind of say that because it's before that, let's say, of course you meet folks in the network and it's like, oh yeah, like I could say I'm going to a different city and then someone would say like, well I know so-and-so in this city, maybe I can link you up, another writer, and y'all can do y'all thing. So there's a lot of underground stuff like that, but I'm just saying even on a professional level, this guy's always stood out, and that's why, it was like, before you knew me, I was already trying to put this together.
Gotcha. All right, quick. Ace, how do you feel about that? Say like you're one of the younger cats on the panel. How do you feel about this kind of guild and like how you've been introduced to the crew and how all these things are kind of playing out for you?
Well, when I really got into graffiti art, it was like high school. A little bit of middle school, but high school I really kind of started to pay attention to it. I was really into the comic book stuff. A lot of the guys I knew was really into comic books and album cover art and stuff like that. And so, like going into high school, like graffiti was like the next, like it was like the teenager thing to do. So, my era, I feel like we didn't really care about structure. We didn't really care about like a lot of stuff we didn't really care about. And you had to like want to care about it. You had to have interest in it.
Yeah.
I was just one of those guys who had interest in it. And a lot of and believe it or not, like with graffiti, like for me, like even a lot of the rap music or hip hop elements in general, there's this weird sort of invisible structure. And so with like letter forms, there's this presence of structure that like once you really start paying attention to the details of this stuff, you can really see how structured it is and how much it flows, and it really makes a lot of sense.
Gotcha.
And so from that point on, I was like, based on little knowledge I would get from people that either were like into stuff, say like, for example, like 5%, or like Noble Drew Ali, or like DeMarcus Garvey, like, and then at the same time, me having interest in graffiti and seeing it on the street, also was seeing how things were being integrated, like there were messages within the art. And so if you were really into it, you would catch these messages. And so even like with these guys, like there were messages that they were putting into their pieces. So me being the younger guy coming along, passing by, I'm catching the messages. Because I might have heard, an elder might have told me something last week. You know, he might have gave me some ancient history. And I'm walking down the street in my own head and I see a mural and I see the wall and I'm like, wait a minute. I see a piece of information visually that I just got schooled on the week before.
So it lined up.
The things kind of, and that's how I was getting that. That's how it was coming to me because a lot of people in my class was like, all right, I got to let everybody know this. When I was in high school, 2001, Eminem was out, Dre dropped crying. So the vulgarity of everything and the context of what was coming out linguistically, like. Some of those guys, we thought they were really rapping, they were really like spitting, you know, they were really dope. And then we discovered, oh no, like Project Blow, like, no, these fools are really dope. These fools ain't really dope. These are the fools that are really dope. Oh, wait a minute. Now these guys are attached, wait a minute.
Sorry, Cleveland.
So and so is a, he does graffiti too? Like this rapper did graffiti, this person. So I started tying all these knots together. And I started putting, and that's how it is for people in my generation. We had to tie pieces together until we were able and fortunate to run into guys like this.
See a big picture.
You know, until we were able to run into guys like this, then we could tie things together. And then it was like some people went one way, some people went another way. But at the time also, like I could look at like a Source magazine, right? I'd go in the store and I'd open the Source magazine. I'd go straight to the back. That's where they would always put graffiti art in the back. The day they stopped doing that was the day I started reading Source magazine. No lie. No lie. Double XL, they all used to do the same thing. The day they stopped doing that was the day I stopped reading them. Because that was the only reason I collected them. For years. Like it was like that. That's what it was. And so my love, it all through and I connected all these elements. You know, so that's how and then I just learned what fueled that. You know, and then that's what I picked it up.
Mask, can you create spoke to your professionalism, like about being on time, like wanting to make sure everyone like got together. You gotta. Can you speak to like a kind of professionalism in relationship to that graffiti art, like where it kind of transcends from like this is me messing around in the alley writing Little Mario to like where it's like, damn, I could actually make a couple of bucks. I could actually turn this into a career. I could. Making sure my crew can rock a whole production that makes sense. Like, how were you big picturing that?
I mean, to speak onto that, it just comes from like the competitive nature of what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it is still art. You know, as far as like it making sense. I mean, it's super geometrical to me, so it's super sophisticated. So that's why, like, even when someone that's not into this graffiti art looks at it and for some reason they don't understand why they're drawn to it, is because it's super smart, it's super intellectual, because it's literally math all on the wall. It's all matching up, the colors, the schemes, everything. And then on top of that you add style and authenticity to it. Oh man, that's why it's just such a beautiful thing. But as far as going back to that whole professional approach to it, it's like, yeah, it's the competitive nature. I'm super anal, maybe a little too anal about things, but I want to create art the way I want, and that's just the way it is. I can't really speak to other than that I want it to come out a certain way, and so I want to give myself enough time, and I definitely want to come off well, because I'm not only representing myself. Obviously, when you join a crew, you're representing the crew as well. And one thing I did want to touch about, as far as the guild and the camaraderie of it, is the one thing I do want to say is not only do I owe graffiti to my professionalism and how it helped me grow from an artist, but all my friendships and deep friendships throughout my life has been formed from graffiti and graffiti art. I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I'm the only dude that's here that's not black, and it's because, and that's the one thing I love about graffiti. Growing up from junior high, from high school to everything, it's, do you got skills or not? It's not, hey, was this kid black? Was he Chinese? Was he white? Is that dope or not? And that's why I love it. It's hip hop. It's just everything like that. It breaks boundaries and it's growing, and that's the one thing. Like, yeah, from junior high till now, to even till now, I still make friendships and it speaks to skills, and skills draw skills. It's not about, hey, is this guy short, fat, is he a girl or guy? It's just skills, and that's the language that breaks all barriers, and that's what's going to bring it all together.
Yeah.
Just to
Before midnight.
piggyback off of that real quick, I actually didn't even know, like, when I was in high school, like, I was the only black kid in my school doing graffiti. I didn't even know that there was other black kids doing graffiti until another cat that was doing graffiti came up to me and was like, hey, you heard of so-and-so? I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, there's a crew full of fools like you. They look just like you. I was like, what? You mean I'm not the only one? You know, and then we had an English teacher. He brought in Wild Style one day. Like, everybody in there was black, Puerto Rican. I'm like, I don't know, because where I grew up, I was in the impression that only the essays was doing it. You know? And then we saw some white boys doing it. You know? But yeah.
Can you speak to it, and then we'll go to the next question?
I was
The skills, this professionalism, your craft.
I don't know, ask me the question again? I'm sorry.
What's the last question? Just say whatever you want, bro. You got another story for us? We're talking about, like, what did the discipline taught you, or the craft of it taught you? Can you speak to that real quick? Brotherhood of it, or guilt of it taught you?
Just doing what I love, even if I'm not focused, because I am a real artist, and creative people can be weirdos in their own type of way.
Sure.
So, you know, there has been times in my life where I wasn't focused, but I've always been kind of just doing art. That's what I knew I wanted to do.
That's been the baseline.
Yeah, that's been the baseline. Like, ever since, you know, like I said, the closet doors, it was just like, every time I opened it up, it was just like a shrine. It was a shrine. You know what I mean? And you know, and then based off of the trauma and the heartbreaks of you know, my childhood, artistically, that caused me not to want to go to art school. So, like, when I graduated, okay, so back to my family. I had a cousin that we used to go. I was two cousins that I had. That was, one cousin was 4 years older than me, and one cousin was 1 year younger than me. And that was my cousin Scott. And Create knows my cousin Scott. So when we used to go head up, we used to sit. You remember the little card tables that you used to flip up like this? And they had little legs that go down. Yeah. So we used to sit at the card table with paper, and I would be like drawing B-boy characters, and he would be drawing like He-Man. So he had, like, you know, he used to like drawing like characters, and I used to be drawing like B-boys and you know, graffiti letters. You know, throughout junior high school, and then when we got older, when it was time to graduate, Scott was like, "Man, let's go to art school." And I was like, "School? Like, no." You know what I'm saying? School was like, you know, school treated me so bad. You know what I mean? Getting kicked out of 4 high schools, getting SWATs every week because I drew on the tables, drew on the halls, drew on my locker. You know, just, I got SWATs all through junior high school, down there. So, you know, Create and my cousin Scott was trying to talk me into going to trade tech. They both went to trade tech, but like I said, I didn't want to have nothing to do with no school. So, but after that, I ended up, when I was 16 years old, I got introduced to entrepreneurship because I did some airbrush pants for my buddy, and we went to a barbershop, and the owner, he told me, "You're gonna open up a business right up there doing airbrush clothes." And I said, "Really?"
In his shop.
Yeah, so he actually, you know, made a space for me. You know what I'm saying? For me to literally do airbrush, you know, to do airbrush clothes, and you know, and make money. And I was like 16. I had the keys to my own business. I was 16. You know, so I used to open the door and lock up. You know what I'm saying? He bought everything for me, and And at that point, that put me in a setting to where I have my own business. I got to be there every day, and I got to be there every day drawing. And I actually was there all day, every day drawing. And then when I left that airbrush shop, it was like, oh man, I gotta open up another shop. And I went and opened up another. And what was I doing there all day, every day? Drawing, paint. So that caused me to hone my skills.
Yeah.
And then being around masters that made me want to actually get better. Because there's a time in your life where you don't even want to be good. You just want to draw.
Yeah, you just want to do it.
Just want to draw. So I was just drawing, And I don't know if I thought I was dope. I don't think I was dope. But I knew I was kind of good and getting good at what I was doing. And I ended up getting an airbrush shop, and someone goes, oh man, they want you to come and work at the airbrush shop with them. And it was nonstop finale breakers. And when I went up there, and I was like, damn, this dude is dope. Because I used to be drawing in my little black books, knocking out black books. But this dude used to have a big sketchbook like this, and he would be like this all day. Flip. Flip. And I used to be sitting there with my black book like. Then he introduced me to, I went to his buddy's house. It was Sketch. Walked into Sketch's house, and I felt at home because there was paintings all over the walls. And I was like, yeah, man, your uncle is dope. Like, who did that? His sister goes, our daddy didn't do that. I said, your uncle is dope. My daddy did. If my uncle didn't do that, I said, who did that? Andre did that. I said, Andre who? Sketch. And I was like, what? And this dude had like full on paintings all over the walls. And I was like, dude, when did you, how did you, like, canvases, how, it was an elephant, like, busting through this fog, and how'd you, oh man, those were assignments at school. I said, assignment at school, kind of find out they went to, like, Hamilton. So instead of them being at English and history and all these classes, they had, like, 3 art classes a day. Yeah. My homeboy, nonstop and Fresh and Freeze, these dudes was like the baddest b-boys I knew. Why? Because they had ballet, jazz dance, and they were in the back of the class. They didn't make them do ballet and jazz dance. They were in the back of the class b-boying. So, and then they introduced me to Design 9, and then that was like, and then at that exact same time, I had met these dudes named Keen and Lur, and how Mask talks about how it looks so effortless. Like these dudes had, I met Lur, and he opened up. I had a little black book in my hand. I didn't even know it was called a peace book. I was just, and he goes, man, you a graffiti writer? I didn't even know it was called a graffiti writer. Because like I said, I was doing things that graffiti writers did. Yeah. And I didn't even know that that's what graffiti writers, I didn't know that graffiti writers had. I was at Standard Brands, and this dude goes, because he saw me sticking markers and spray paint in my pockets. Yeah. And the dude, and one of the workers comes and goes, hey, homie, you a graffiti writer? And I was like, what's that? You do graffiti? I was like, what's that? You write on walls? I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, homie, you got a black book? No. He was like, look, get you one of them. He turned around and walked away. And I was just like, oh, wow. So I had my little black book, and I was drawing in it. Lur saw my book and was like, that's your black book? And I was just like, yeah. He said, you do graffiti? I said, yeah. He opened up my book and just laughed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, these things that you're talking about is what the next, it's perfect segue to where we're going to get into this next part of our talk. Because the next part of our talk is where graffiti art, which all of you are practitioners of, knowingly when you were going to Standard Brands or not knowingly, where our graffiti art is, the way Mask put it, in relationship to the mathematics of something as complicated as like the calligraphy that Ace did on that wall over there, and the letter forms that, like, create. Every time I see one that creates, I'm lucky. I own one that creates pieces on the canvas. On my pad it says growth, and I'm always looking at it like, how did you get that thing so straight? Like it's spray painted, it's so straight, and I gotta like look at it up close. And that mastery in that craft. And that all that time you spend, when I talk to my students, I always talk about this triangle, right? If you can imagine a triangle, y'all have done this first hard leg, which is falling in love with it. We opened up this talk with love, right? Love is an uphill battle to the pinnacle of this triangle, right? Like, and all of us that have been in love, we know love ain't easy. We've been fighting, and you want to eat this, they don't want to eat that. I've been with my wife 25 years. Love is uphill, believe me, right? But when you get to the top, you want to share it with other people because it's beautiful, right? Like, oh, how did you stay with your wife so long? Oh, my wife is cool, man. She makes me laugh. She's like awesome, like, right? You want to share that with people. You know, like, oh, you should be in love too. Find somebody you love and be to the top of it with them, right? But love ain't easy getting up there. But then when you get to the top, and this coast down is spending the time with it, right? Which all of you have spent time with, right? Is you spend so much time that you can't even recognize it. You couldn't even count it. Like that, the book came out a few years ago saying that 10,000 hours or whatever is how you're supposed to be master something. Y'all have put in the 10,000 hours plus, right? But why do we go through this love, and why do we go through this time? And it's for the base of the triangle, which is access, right? We want access. We want access. We spent the hard road of uphill, and we spend all this time because we want access. We want access to love. We want access to intimate moments, right? And one of the things that I was invited to talk to y'all about, which is kind of like, y'all have brought it up, is the notion of kind of race and who gets access to kind of play at the table, right? You talk about that card table. Because one of the things that coming from South Central Los Angeles, before they renamed it, all the little cute names that they renamed it, right? Where it's hoods, right? It's hoods. Well, how did you learn graffiti? Like all of us said, like, so my mom wrote on her 45s, right? Like, they don't put up a plaque that says which hood was there anymore. They just renamed it, right? So y'all are coming from a place that has, for the most part, has a history of violence, a history of trauma, and that story has been repackaged and sold through movies and through media. The only representation I could see as a young Latino male in Los Angeles, for me growing up in that time, for the American dream, was seeing the Scarface film. Right? Because that was the only Latino that had the American dream, that had a better life. Like every immigrant, they asked, like, why did you come to this country? And then if we were playing Family Feud, like top 5 answers on the board, they'd be like, what's the top 5 answers on the board? And we would win if we said, oh, for a better life, right? It'd be like, ding, 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 that's the top first one. The only person I saw having a better life in representation of media was Tony Montana. Because he had 2 tigers. Right? Like, I was like, man, like, I didn't see, like a better life, like somebody just having a normal job and paying a mortgage and all this kind of stuff. That wasn't like a better life, right? And those types of things were the only things that were fed to us as media representation, right? So we're talking about, at that time, there was like, the heartbreak you brought up in relationship to the tag banging situation and media reconfiguring what we look like on, the Fox News and all this stuff, making sure everybody thought that everybody was doing some scandal, right? Some dilapidated stuff. That helped reinvigorate a notion of who had access and things like this to gallery representation, to things that you would think were like growing points of art, right? One of the things that I really took note of, and if you haven't seen the show, one of the writers in your crew, Rish, in one of the magazines, when they're asking him about, do you want to show in galleries, etc., he says, we are not painting our way out of the ghetto, we are painting the ghetto. And I was like, man, that's deep. Like, it's not aspirational for a better life. Like, we're making the life we have colorful, brilliant, fire, like the kids say, right? Yeah. So what is the aspiration of a crew that has such grassroots, like y'all do, taking on mentees, having the alley around the corner where you have the gallery where all the pieces that you curate are. Florence and Western. Because we were going to start this conversation about like what is where graffiti art, and when I started working with Create, and you all remember this, we were having exhibitions, but I was working with cultural affairs, but we got to change the name. We can't say graffiti art. We have to say aerosol art or spray. Remember that time? We had how are we going to do this? We're going to have to change the name because graffiti art, everybody's going to think of it as like tag bangers, whatever. But we're like, so with that moment, I found that there was like a slippery slope in how we were not owning the language of its origin. And if you watch some of the B-boy movies, they'll be like, we didn't even know that it was called break-in. We were B-boys and B-girls, not break-in. And then this kind of media appropriated it, and then at the end of the day, it became street art. So I wanted you to break down, and this is not, let's not just go down the line on this, so like if you just want to jump in and however you feel about where you felt like graffiti, somehow or another there was a slippage from where the roots were in graffiti art and letters, characters, things that were coming out of a kind of the primordial stew of like all these hoods, right? All these hoods and all the trauma that you've been talking about. Where that shifted to something called street art, and where street art became the kind of thing that became the kind of art that you would see painted by artists that didn't go through this kind of trajectory that y'all have of like apprenticeship within the guild.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, check this one out, because street art is not really new. It's been around with Keith Heron and some of them guys doing that back then in New York, because I remember my teacher said, oh, so you love graffiti so much, why don't you be like Keith Heron? I'm like, who? I'm like, that wasn't like hearing like Case 2 or Scheme or nothing. So when she said Keith Heron to me, I was in high school, I was like, she said, go look him up. I was like, I don't trip, he in his subway art, he in his Star Wars, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't tripping off, not no disrespect to him because he dead, but you know, like, he wasn't like to us a stylist. You know what I'm saying? We looked up to people who had like letters that had rhythm to it, letters that had flavor. You know, stuff that we could relate to, stuff that when you look at it, you could feel it. Soon you identify with it. So that's how I looked at it. In terms of in Los Angeles, you know, some of our people that was already at the top, and not per se our crew, but other well-known established graffiti writers out here in LA that were established, when they start climbing the ladder, a lot of their artwork start getting watered down, like they start losing its finesse to it. And we was like, damn, like, why they don't have that stuff? We grew up off, not that they had to stay on the same level, because we always got to grow, but it seemed like a lot of stuff started like just getting watered down. And then there was a point where when we started getting opportunities, people say, don't be no sellout. We said, well, what that mean, like in terms of don't start doing t-shirt designs, don't start doing stuff for corporate world. So that was like a thin line that at one point we was trying to say keep it real, and we was trying not to do that. But then you'd be like, well damn man, I don't want no regular job, why not just do what I like to do? You know, and I start sort of crossing that thin line, but still trying to remember, stay true to my foundation and my roots. So I had to stay true, and I did a lot of commercial work in my early 20s, and it was interesting because when I first did the job for Nike, we did 5 major billboards throughout the city of LA, and every month a new shoe came out, a new billboard came out. So at that time I didn't have no car, I'm on the bus, so I'm looking out the bus window, and it felt good to see my artwork on the billboards, along with 2 other people I had to collaborate with. And so that was my first transition into the commercial world, and it was interesting. But anyway, real quick, the street art. I always tell people in all my lectures and demonstrations that I teach that those are 2 different worlds. Us as stylists, we perfect the art form of doing lettering. But at the same time, for the listeners out there, always keep in mind that we're not limited to just doing letters. A lot of us up here on this panel, we can do letters, background, characters, and we pretty skillful at all different things. We don't just work with spray paint, we work with pencil, charcoal, oils, watercolors, you name it, and computer graphics. So we do have those type of skills because as an artist, we just got the knowledge of color theory, letter structure, and we know how to construct things, and we know about compositions. And so it's very important to grow as an artist. But as far as opportunities, you know, it is a little weird these days where I can't complain too much because I have gotten a lot of good golden opportunities. But in order to stay in that, you got to stay relevant, you got to stay present. I got to keep putting my name out there on the line a lot. You know, even if I put my name on the line, sometimes I'm still overlooked. Somebody might say, well, why are you overlooked? I don't know. I'll be wanting to know that too. It's a question. It's like, I have a show coming up December 13th in downtown LA, a solo small exhibit, but it's going to be a mighty exhibit. Now, I'm curious to see how many people going to come out and peep that show out and show me some love, not just because I'm creative, but they know I got some flavor, and trust me, whenever I put anything out there, I'm bringing the heat. I'm bringing pure flavor. So I asked myself, in this major art world out here in LA, who's gonna come through to even look at it? Art buyers, collectors. I would hope that they come and show some respect and start to tap into people like us and start collecting our work. You know, that's the only way we're gonna get to that level. People have to support us. In the hood, where we come from, a lot of people don't have that kind of money sometimes. You know, so we gotta look for those people on the outskirts that got the finances to come and say, let me buy a piece of your work. Matter of fact, let me start collecting a series of your work. And that's where we need those opportunities. We're not begging for them. You know, we taking a strong, firm stand and we putting our foot down. And trust me, I'm going to still keep pounding till I break the wall, then I guarantee you that.
But the value's there, Creed. Like, the value of your work is there.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I wanted to talk about, like, this kind of mastery and the guildmanship and the time.
Yeah.
And now you're at the point of access. People need to start focusing on supporting that access so that all of y'all as creative people, artists, master makers in Los Angeles are being granted access.
Let me say this real quick. I know they got a lot of good things to say. In this art world, there become favoritism, and people jump on the bandwagon and they go with what's hot, what's in style, what's the trend. And if this person is spoke about the most, they're gonna roll with that person the most. And no matter how good we could be rocking, they're gonna be like, oh, like me and Ink and say, you know, and we all did have conversation like, man, we some, in the humble way, we some bad artists. But they pay somebody a gang of money to do some real weird looking stuff, and we'll be like, man, you done pay them how much for what? And we'll be like, man, it's great. So I'm gonna pass the torch.
I think that's called politics.
It's called navigational capital. And what happens is like somebody, they get that platform, and then everybody starts making phone calls, like, yo, hook my boy up.
Yeah, terms, right? You know, I mean, I know we're here talking, you know, graffiti versus street art, but even graffiti, the term itself is kind of a misnomer, you know, like it's writing. So even like folks like Case 2 would say, you know, like, I'm not vandalism, you know, like, you know, he's elevating it, you know, to an art. So I always kind of hold to that kind of, you know, angle on things. The street art stuff is really it's a marketing scam basically, and it's got a lot of folks confused. You know, and you know, there's some things. You know, like I like to look at, or I like to point out, like El Phantom's Disobey the Fairy thing, where he shows, like, you know, Shepherd Fairy taking all this clip art and, you know, political movements and stuff, you know, from people of color, indigenous, and, you know, across the board, you know. So I mean, that's, you know, had some heavy appropriation. And then, like, you know, like a Banksy comes out of like a Black Larat, and nobody knows about Black Larat, you know. Which I was looking at Black Larat stuff in like old IGT. So then you look at like stuff like this, and then you're like, cats like Phase 2 get overlooked, and he's unheard of because, you know, Banksy, Shepherd Fairy, and you're like, you know, we're all like, come on, that's Phase 2, the Case 2, the, you know, Vulcan, and, you know, so I don't know, I try to kind of just stay away from all the terms, you know, like, because it gets confusing, you know. Even from, how do you say, from an aerosol artist or a stylist point of view, you know, like for me, I'm just saying, like, I also straddle into like contemporary art world just for the day work I do, you know. So it's and it's totally different, you know. But then there's some things that do bind and connect that you know, that become kind of interesting, but that's a whole another you know, topic. But yeah, you know, like there was other things that I even learned, you know, like doing a spray paint company and learning about like the corporate conglomerate of Sherwin-Williams and how it breaks down into like Montana Gold and all of this stuff, and how it's all a marketing, you know, it's just marketing for spray paint, you know. They put the Montana Gold, you know, logo on there, and everybody's posing with them, doing selfies in front of their picture, or in front of their pieces and stuff. And it's like, wow, you have no idea, you know, the bamboozlement that's going on, and you know, across the globe, you know, in a sense. So yeah, I don't know. Not my 2 cents.
I don't know. I think growing up for me, it's like there's all these like weird nuances to like getting a straight line, getting the perfect blend, not having any drips. I think once people started to like go against the fundamentals, so things really started to shift a little bit. There's like a chain reaction of things that just it just really affected a lot of us, I think, because you're used to this structure. We're talking about these structures and these fundamentals, and those are, it's like you learn them so you can break them, right, quote unquote. But then they really get broken in a way to where it's really diluted. And that love, unless you really have the love, then you stick with it and you'll pull through. Like somebody like Create, I look at Create and I can say, that gives me reason to pull through, because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that we see today where the styles it's just been really diluted because people are trying to find their way, they're trying to find their own style, they're trying to find ways to be creative, and there's nothing new under the sun. So what happens is people they're either gonna bite or they're gonna try to do something that somebody else is doing a little differently, or just straight up just do something that's just not even a part of the art form, and then try to attach it to the art form. And that happens a lot. Some people they're fueling off of that energy, but they're not really willing to sort of be there. They don't really want to be a part of that. They just want a piece of that so they can run back to their little cubicle and then show it to everyone else that they might have the money to support their little cubicle idea.
Gotcha.
And then from there, it's we're going to be seeing them blowing up and wondering how come that wasn't us. I've had people ask me to show them I've had people literally, not even people at this table, like people that are totally outside of here. They live in a different neighborhood. They don't understand the struggle or any of that. They just ask like, hey, can you show us how you do what you do? And I have to sit there and tell them no. Because I look around at the people that's around me and I say, hey, you guys took everything from everybody that's around me, so why am I going to do that? Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. And it does go against the each one teach one concept. Mm-hmm. But at this point, why am I going to teach something to a group of people that are just going to not accredit us in the way that it needs to be accredited, or let alone put us in front of the opportunities? Don't ask me to show you something and then you go run and get an opportunity off of what I showed you. That's foul.
Tell them they need to fill out an application and pay the application fees. All right, Mask. Want to jump in or Dean? Back up the other side of the table.
I think he's got crazy stories about this. I don't even wants to share it because they might be too harsh.
I mean, yeah, I've been trying to make it for a long time, on different levels. I mean, I've been, of course, overlooked because I'm from South Central and I'm black.
Yes, sir.
On the aerosol art / graffiti / aerosol urban hieroglyphics scene. There's been people who just, they won't acknowledge me and didn't acknowledge me because everybody not saying my name. I just keep busting. I just keep coming with that flavor, with them skills. I don't care what they say. You know what I'm saying? I even, I've been overlooked to be invited to art shows, art events, and there's been times where I just had to, okay, y'all don't want to invite me to that event, and I'll just show up and bring my own canvas and do a live painting, just like right on the spot. You know what I'm saying? To where they're just looking like, who is that? Yeah. What is he doing here? Like, what is he doing here? I'm busting, fool. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just barely nowadays, I think I might just be getting a little bit of, you know, recognition, or people looking at me, or, you know, dudes who I've been looking at for years are finally looking, going, yeah, Ink. And I'm going, well, he said my name. You know what I'm saying? And it's just weird, just that, you know, just to have someone that ain't even nearly as dope as you, and you're surprised that they said your name. You feel me? So it's like, yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because I've never kind of like really been that dude, because like I said, I've always owned my own business, and that's what I've been doing. I've been running my business. So when everybody else was out in the yards and out, you know, running with a bunch of graffiti writers and doing stuff, man, I was at my airbrush shop. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I was at the spot doing that. So when everybody else was meeting everybody and running around, like I said, I wasn't meeting everybody. I don't know everybody like everybody. Everybody in here know 20 times more graffiti writers than I know, and painted with a lot more. You know, so like, and then on the other side, let's just say on the commercial side, you know, on the money making side, you know, it's the same thing. Like I've seen, you know, I've been overlooked, and, you know, and I see major people, because I know so many guys, man, there's so much talent in this room that it's not funny. I'm talking about on all aspects. Not just graffiti, but b-boys, MCs, beat makers. And like literally some of the dopest dudes I know are in this room. And why? I don't know any millionaires, not unless they just keeping it a secret. You dig what I'm saying? Like I know some dudes, like I'm super fans of dudes in this room. I'm super fans of dudes in this room. You know what I'm saying? And why they not blown up and got platinum plaques? You know, so it's like we all get overlooked and over your talents. Why? I don't know. Is it where we from? Is it our skin tone? Like, you know, not enough brown nosing. You know, did you not go in that?
Might be a little bit of it.
Did you not go in that back room with the little closet with that little door? You know, you want to walk in that back door. You come back here, you'll blow up. Like, no, I ain't going there. You know, so.
Okay, so getting to that point, you want to say something else?
Well, I do kind of want to add my point too, because I kind of feel like I'm kind of experienced both sides, so I'm kind of in the middle. To be totally honest, I grew up, I guess, on a more privileged sense of the art. I grew up on the west side. I grew up around like predominantly white kids. I mean, I always grew up with a mixed group of kids. I never saw race as an issue until it was brought up to me. But predominantly, I grew up on the west side, and I've always, I grew up as a metalhead growing up. Yeah! And then at some point, when it went to the alternative scene, I kind of went against that, and for some reason, I was like, I'm going to jump on something else, and I don't know, for no rhyme or reason, there's a lot of brothers in my elementary school, and I just said, hey, those are my friends that listen to hip-hop, so that's what I'm going to jump into. Again, never saw color or thought of nothing until it was brought to me. Yeah, man, it's just kind of crazy. It's definitely insane to see both sides of it. I definitely feel privileged to be able to come down and paint the hood or whatever it is, because I know it's not going down on the west side. Every time me and my boys try to paint on the west side, it's not going to happen. It's just never going to happen. So in that sense, you know, I love that I can come and, you know, paint, and sometimes I do trip, you know, that I'm painting in South Central, and I'm a Korean dude, like, painting in the hood, and I trip on that type of stuff. I don't know how anyone feels about that, but I just know that it's a canvas for me, and I'm not doing it for race or money or anything like that. For me, it's pure hobby. Like, when I'm at the wall, it's just, I don't think about anything. All stress just goes away. I just think about colors and my scheme and just rocking it fresh. And that's kind of the way I want to go. And kind of, I want to allude to Sano's point about labeling and this and that. I kind of want to be careful of that as well, because I've just kind of noticed, not only just in art, just in the history of humanity, the more and more we label, every label just creates division. And I just kind of feel like we need to get away from that. Now, to even elaborate on that, the best way I could specify the uncomfortableness or the anger towards graffiti versus street art, the best comparison I can make is hip-hop versus rap. So there's hip-hop, which is the culture that is expressed through an art form, rather there's someone that can rap and just do the skill form without the culture. So I think that's the difference between graffiti art and street art, is there's the culture of graffiti, but there's someone that can do the street art and wants to get the cred of the struggles of graffiti that comes with it, but they want that street cred without the experience and the struggle with it. So I think that's where there's a lot of animosity for that and recognition from the graffiti world that wants that. And I don't know whose fault that is. Again, I think it's bigger than anyone in this room. I think it all comes down to politics and money and all that stuff, but that's outside of this conversation. But at the end of the day, I think it's a beautiful thing that I can sit here with these dudes and just everyone in this room and just talk and be able to flex dope art, and I just want to move forward and hopefully everyone gets a little greater life from this.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, sure.
'Cause I just thought about something. I think it's important that people kind of know this. For like a long time, like for years, like I was hitting up like South Central area, Inglewood, and I would go like look at the magazines that had all the graffiti art in it. Like go down Melrose, pick up Joints magazines. There was these different little like frames. There was different little publications. It was printed at the time. And I always look at them and say, like, man, like, where are they taking these pictures? Because for a while, like, I know guys were putting up certain stuff, so I started trying to figure out where were they taking these pictures, because there's all this other stuff that I know is dope where I'm at, but I don't see pictures of it. So I started processing something. I started processing that all these photos are being taken, say, like Hollywood area, West Hollywood, or Melrose. These photos are being taken at very specific places. They were not coming past Wilshire. They weren't crossing Wilshire. They were not crossing Wilshire. So I started to realize that. So I actually started to be very specific on some spots that I would pick, and started going in those directions because they weren't coming down here to look at what we were doing. All these people are staying on the other side of Wilshire.
Can I add something there real quick? There's a lot of dudes that are like, yeah, dude, let's paint. Where you want to paint? I'm like, I'll tell them where I'm going to go paint. They're like, nah. Because one, I think they're just kind of discussed out. But two, I think it's mainly because they won't get the notoriety of Melrose. They won't get the notoriety of Sunset. And I'm just like, so what do you want to paint for? Do you want to paint for the IG post? Or do you want to paint because you love to paint?
Yeah, that's heavy duty. Well, we're getting to the time to wrap up. I'm going to give my last kind of thing out to y'all. You don't need to go down the line, just jump in as you want to. But with that kind of access and the change of the distribution from only being in like zines you had to pick up or yards you had to go to being on the internet, I wanted to ask of you guys, because we just addressed the complaint box, right? Like, I feel like we just pulled out all the little notes on the complaint box on the wall. But I wanted to, and I'm glad we addressed that. But I want to see what the proactive strategies are for addressing a future of kind of this navigational capital that I was talking about, which means that we plug each other. Like, we all know where to buy. Who got the plug for whatever, but like we need to be plugging each other all the time. How do we plug each other? How when we sit on, all of you get to maybe, I don't know, I get to sit on certain committees that make decisions. I know Create does a lot. Like we get to be on these kind of committees, or even if it's something in the hood that somebody's trying to make a decision on, like how do we make sure that we are putting the people that we know have the talent on those platforms to be picked for those opportunities. So I just wanted to put that out to you, like what could be some proactive strategies. Also throw out to some of the people in our audience, like what they could be thinking. I know you talked about collecting as being something very important. What kinds of other things can we be doing as a community, as a group of people that are supportive of the arts, that are familiar with your artwork, to be supportive as we can, as we lead for each other and with each other. Can you give us some strategies?
I'll give you an example. When I got the email or the message on Facebook about the Getty Black Book Project, I thought it was a joke, so I didn't really respond to it right away. And then I ended up responding to the guy that was in charge. So he gave me his number, we made contact, and I thought it still was a joke, so I had to call the other official people that I knew was part of it, that he told me was part of it, just to make sure it was official. And when they told me, yeah, Create, we brought up your name because, you guys already, they said that. They said you get left out a lot, so we wanted to make sure we cover all bases. I said, man, thanks for thinking about it. They said, well, come to the meeting. I ended up going, and when I was listening at the meeting, and I looked around the room, I said, man, this is my responsibility and my opportunity to pull in all my heavy hitters. And I said, because if I didn't do that, that'd be some heavy weight on my shoulder where I can't go to sleep at night, And we did a damn good job. We hit a home run out the park for the Getty Black Book Project with 149 other artists. Also, when we did the Aiseborne Museum, I went to that meeting. I'm sitting in there, they're like, Create, who are you gonna bring? I said, oh, don't worry. I said, well, the people I'm bringing, we gonna put a dent in the program. They was like, damn, who that dude bringing? And then I bought the force in, And when I bought the force in there, I told him in advance, I said, dude, whatever we do for the Getty Black Book Project and this museum, we making a statement. We're not gonna go in there and paint nothing that's gonna be silly. We're gonna do something that when people come in, they gonna turn their head and catch whiplash for turning so hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, when they look at that, they're gonna say, and I want them to get something from it, so when they walk away, we're gonna leave a stain on their brain to where they gonna always talk about that one particular piece as one of the heavy hitting pieces in the museum. So I say all that to say, if we are in certain positions, talking about us the artists, we have to be able to make sure that we keep pulling people up. And sometimes we can't in certain situations. I know because I've been in situations where I can't pull everybody. I got to just represent solid for the team. But when I do got an opportunity to pull people up, I'm like, hey, and I only got to deal with the people who's responsible, people who's on point, because that's another thing. A lot of times people don't want to deal with certain people because, they late, they got attitude, they be tripping, you know what I'm saying? So I got to deal with people I know I could hold accountable, they responsible folks, and they like to put in good work. So that's very important of how we have to reach back and pull people into the big places. Now, real quick, I want to say this. Sometimes, once again, there's times where we won't get it. So we got to create our own opportunities where we're not begging nobody for nothing. So I'm going to leave it on that note.
I think I'd like to mention, I know we are kind of primarily focused on like community events, community action, maybe is the way to say it. I'd also like to mention that there's all kinds of layers even outside of that or connected with that, and so much as like city, statewide, national, and global maybe programs that that we can engage. I mean, there's events like Powwow Hawaii. I think they do Powwow Long Beach. It's a big mural event. They travel all over doing these kind of events, and it's a mural event, but there's a lot of street artists involved with it. Meeting of Styles just came through. I've never been invited to the Meeting of Styles, but I'm aware of it. And what else? I know there's a whole bunch of other events and stuff, but I know Meeting of Styles kind of leads into a magazine called Graffitism, which is a huge global graffiti magazine because they do Meeting of Styles all over the world. I'm just going to mention, like last year, I was involved with a program through the U.S. State Department, Bureau of Culture and Education. It's a program called Next Level USA. It's a graffiti program that's a hip hop program, so there's all elements. And the year when I did it, I was one of the first graffiti writers to basically be sponsored by the U.S. government to, travel to another country and be sponsored. So I went to Cambodia and taught graffiti for 2 weeks, as well as I did some stuff in Japan and taught out there and whatnot. I'm just saying, I think we have to not just look at the community reach, but the global reach. And as we can kind of tie these things in, and to mention about strategy or whatnot, I mean, I'm trying to, do things where I'm back and forth to Cleveland. I'm trying to get things going on over there, and then hopefully that can lead to building, bridges with, LA artists, and we can go back and forth and maybe hopefully travel to these other countries too, because it's kind of like planting these seeds all over to build these bridges, is kind of where I'm at with it. So.
I kind of lost track of what you were saying.
I was saying, like, if we had any proactive strategies, like we just went over all kinds of stuff, but what are you proactively doing to create opportunity for yourself, for some of your mentees, or other people in your crew, folks in the community? How do we do that? Any strategies you could give us?
I think being an example of what a disciplined artist and a good one is, I think is very important, because even when we can't do things that are, say, on a political scale, there's small things that we can do in terms of that are related to our crafts that actually do give off energy and vibrate energy. And it's not easy being an artist like this, and art in general, especially graffiti. Like, it's fun, but it's a very hard road, and you really have to love it, because if you don't love it, it's just going to eat you alive. And then there's no way you can be proactive if you're getting ate alive. Like, I could be sitting in a corner crying, but I'm never going to be that great artist if I sit in that corner and just sob in tears all day. I can't do anything. That's not proactive for me, and I think that sometimes people get into this art form because they think it's easy, and it's something that, it's not hard work. It's like, it's just easy. Like, I can make a living doing that, and they find out differently later on down the line, because if the truth of the matter, they were really passionate about it, there would have been all these extracurricular things that they would have did, whether it was academic or if it was they learned it on the street. There would have been these things that they just would have obtained and gained, and that in itself is proactive, because these guys were proactive, and now in turn I became
lead with the art is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Lead with the art.
Yeah, because it still goes back to the each one teach one.
Got you. Yeah. Got you. Lead with the art.
I don't got too much to say, but I guess my only thing to say is kind of what you're saying, lead by example and just stay active. What you're saying about graffiti, I don't think anyone really makes a living off of it, other than like a very small handful of people that do, but there's no money in it. It's just pure joy for me. I work 40 hours of work being a designer. I bust my ass for some big corporation, and when someone calls me up, hey, let's paint this weekend, I'm tired as hell, but I'm so excited. I do I run my errands, and I'm up at like 11,